Hello, welcome to today's webinar. Today's webinar is under M&E for week 7, and this is just for the CBO NGO group. So we're just going to allow for more people to join, and we're going to give just about a minute more. And once we have a good audience, we'll start officially. So hello all, good day and welcome to today's webinar. We'll start right now. We have our presenter with us. Today's webinar is M&E, Measuring Indicator, Success and Indicator Development. So it's for week 7 and just for the CBO NGO group. So if you are for the CBO NGO group and you've not had any webinar this week, this webinar is for you. My name is Dr. Eugene, and WMI's Leadership Skill Development Coordinator, and I'll be moderating today's webinar. So we have our presenter here with us. Our presenter is Eric Nandoya, and Eric is an applied public health practitioner and researcher with 15 years of experience providing result-based strategic leadership, program management, monitoring and evaluation, and capacity building to different programs in complex contexts. He's highly adapted at program design, project planning and management, and well-versed in program management and data analysis tools for outcome and impact evaluation. He's also very adapted with risk and issue mitigation, fundraising, stakeholder relationship management, project tracking, budgeting, and process improvement. Eric holds a PhD in community health disease prevention and control, and a PMI certification, and also a member of the International Monitoring Evaluation Practitioners Association. And it's with great delight we have you today, Eric, to let us in on some of this knowledge you have in monitoring and evaluation to grow our CBOs and NGOs. So thank you and welcome. Before Eric finally takes over, I want to encourage everyone present to please use the Q&A, please use the chat to engage, ask questions. You can also introduce yourself and where you are joining from, and we'll be glad to respond to everyone. Thank you so much. Over to you, Eric. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Success. Maybe for the sake of the team to see my face so that you can attach the name to the face, I think Success has done a very good job by introducing myself. That's me. So we'll just straight away go to the session of today. So today I'll be discussing with you something to do with measuring success and indicator development. But before we get into the meat of the presentation, I would like you to understand some of the areas that we will discuss in today's session. We will look at us understanding what development success is, then look at how do we measure that success, then take a few minutes to look at understanding what development indicators are and how to develop them, align those indicators to the program, and putting in place mechanisms for us to be able to measure or track the indicators. I hope I'm loud enough, and I hope I'm clear enough that you are able to hear me. If that is okay, then I can proceed. So success is defined by many people in the development world as specific criteria which they establish by NGOs or CBOs before they start doing their development initiatives. NGOs and we call, let me put off my video first. NGOs and CBOs may use certain specifications, milestones, or deliverables to evaluate success at the end of development. And the specifications or milestones may reach 3 criteria, which they use to develop, which they measure development success in terms of impact, sustainability, and contribution to capacity development. So when we look at that, we look at the success as impact. It might refer to impact as a criteria, and impact refers to the results of a program or a project that are assessed with reference to that development initiative as a long-term goal or objective. Impact may represent those changes that occur in a situation, whether those changes were planned for or they were not planned for, whether they are positive or they are negative, that a program or a project may bring about during the development initiative. Impact may also be assessed only once a significant period has elapsed after the completion of a program or a project. It may also assessed throughout the preparation of the, through the preparation of baseline data and setting of the indicators so that we can monitor and evaluate what success is. When we are talking about criteria to do with sustainability, this is the durability of positive program or project results after termination of the technical cooperation channels through the program or the project. It could be static, whereby same benefit, there is continuous flow of benefits, same benefits that were set in motion by the completion of a program to this, the target groups. It can also, sustainability can also be dynamic sustainability, where there is an adoption of program or project results to different contexts or changing environment by the original target group and or other groups. Then when we're talking about the criterion for success is in terms of contribution to capacity, where it relates to the extent to which a program or a project enables target groups to be self-reliant in terms of it makes it possible for an institution, government institution, private sector, civil society organization to use the positive experiences with the program or the project in addressing broader development issues. That means that there is transfer of expertise, there's transfer of knowledge, and the capacity of the people has been built in order to continue with the development initiative. So let's look at some of the basics to measure this success. First of all, to measure success, we have to look at defining of what NGO or CBO development initiative and scope is. And to do that, there are several steps that I just want to discuss with you very quickly so that you can understand. When we are defining NGO and development initiative, we saw that we are clear on the journey towards success. The first thing you need to do in defining of NGO and development initiative and scope is to define the problem or the opportunity. Defining the problem or the opportunity it helps you to determine what the goal and objectives of the program is, so that it actually makes it clear what is this success that we want to achieve. In that definition is, we will consider what needs, we will consider the gaps, the issues that exist in some situations that your program will want to address. Then once we define the problem or the opportunity, we will go to the level of, we conduct a needs assessment, so that this needs assessment will help us to be a little bit more clear in identifying the specific needs and the priorities of the target population or community, so that we are able to look at what are these most pressing needs, issues that the program want to address, or the goal that you are setting. You want to understand, what do you want to achieve throughout your program, so that a success is achieved. Then once you do that, you get to the level of developing program goals. Once you have identified the needs and priorities, you will now get to the level of defining goals, defining those broader statements that describe the overall outcome or success or impact that you want to achieve. Then you need to be a little more smart, that is specific. That goal needs to be to a level that it is specific, you can measure it, you can achieve it, it's relevant to the context that you are in, and it has a time bound when you want to achieve, so that you are not just very general, but you are targeting to a certain level of smartness. Then you develop program objectives. You become now narrower. I usually say it's like a sieve when you are getting from, when you are doing the developing specific objectives. It's like you are getting narrower. You are like filtering to get to some specific things that you need to do, so that you can achieve success. So you develop program objectives, so that these objectives are very specific and tangible than the goals. And they are smart. These are more smart than goals, because they need to get more granular and more minute, to a level that you can see and they are tangible in practice. Then you will align the program goals and objectives with the stakeholders. You have so many stakeholders within the program or the project. You have the partners, the people who are implementing in the same sector that you are in. You have the community leaders. You have those that we call the target population, and those people that give you money, as we call them, the funders. So that you have to align those goals and objectives with them, so that you are relevant, you are meaningful, and everybody understands the intention, everybody knows the same direction that you're going. Then you go to a level of you revise and finalize program goals and objectives, so that you are able to ensure that they are very smart, and that they reflect the needs and the priorities of the target population and other stakeholders. When you do that, you will go to the next level of defining those specific activities. And how you do this is to brainstorm, because it has to be as participatory as possible. You brainstorm with the stakeholders, so that you have a list of potential activities that you want to implement and achieve your goals and objectives. Then you need to organize the list of potential activities into some categories or some themes. These categories or themes can be based on your objectives. Then once you do that, you can be able to determine the resources needed for you to do these activities, the personnel. You can be able to look at the equipment and the funding that you need, so that you can be able to prioritize and plan activities that are of priority, and those activities that are feasible and realistic to implement. Because sometimes when we cannot measure success when we are not very specific to the objectives that are aligned to the needs of the stakeholders and to the program or goals and objectives. So that's what you need to do. It's good also to develop a timeline that outlines when each of the activities that you're planning for need to happen, so that you are able to ensure that the program is well coordinated and that the activities are aligned with the program goals and objectives, as I said. I've just shown you an illustration of this journey to success, as I said, so that when you look at impact, you see for you to get the success of the impact, as I talked into the criteria in earlier, you will see this flow of from what you invest, then the processes that you carry out in terms of activities, and then what you achieve immediately after implementing the activities, then what comes out of those outputs, then the impact that you make in terms of defining your success. Okay. Then step two, once you have defined success and scope, you will be able now to set what we call monitoring and evaluation, so that you have specifications of the things that you want to monitor, to see whether you are moving towards your success or not. So what you do is you develop evaluation questions. These evaluation questions can be contained into what people call the TOR, and it is done together with stakeholders in a participatory manner, so that when the stakeholders are there, all of you are clear on the goals, you are clear on the strategies, you are clear on objectives, you are clear even on the strategic plan, and what the work plan is very clear who is doing what responsibility. Then once you develop evaluation questions, you will develop evaluation terms and reference. Then you will collect data, baseline data. It is good for you to collect baseline data so that you see before you start doing before you start implementing, where are you? What is the situation looking like? And you collect both quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative is the numbers, and qualitative is the stories or experiences that can be explained in narrative, so that you are able to understand what is the situation looking like before you say that you have achieved a certain or you have made success. Okay. Then you will develop indicators and set realistic targets, targets that you'll be able to look at and see your progress towards the impact and success. Then you will collect routine data to track progress towards success. Then by collecting routine data, it means you have to have tools, you have to have people, then you have to give people responsibilities to collect data, so that you can be able to look at the data, reflect on that data, and make program adjustment as you move to see if you are moving towards the success that you have set. Okay, I hope we are together. And then once you do that, then you will do the evaluation of your outcome or impact. So you will collect data, both quantitative and qualitative data, so that you can compare baseline data with end of project data collection, so that you are able to see, did you achieve in terms of impact, or you did not achieve. Then step three, what you do is you analyze and reflect on key areas of your project or program by analyzing the project budgets, Look at the budget. Is the budget indicating the essential indicator of project success? Budget could be you have overspent but not achieved the goals that you set, or you have underspent. What finance people always say, burn rates are high or burn rates are low, but compared to the output or to the outcome of what you have done might not be on the same level or not achieved. So you have to analyze and reflect on the budget. Then you have to analyze and review and reflect on client satisfaction. Is the target population satisfied with the results or not? And they can provide feedback into the inside future, how they wanted to see future look like, how they wanted to see success look like. Because sometimes we might be moving, just implementing or doing things, but not moving with the client, and the clients seem to be out of your focus. Then you will reflect on expectations. You will expect, you'll look at the best practices, look at some of the constraints as you see, is there success or not? I don't know if there's a question up to that level. Okay. Silence means that we are together.
No questions yet.
Then you will also analyze, you will also review and reflect on internal growth and team satisfaction. You remember that when we are talking about criteria, we looked at the criteria of measuring success that involves is there capacity, is the people who are involved in implementing the program, do they gain the capacity enough to be able to do things, to be able to move some goals beyond? So it is also important to review and reflect on internal growth and team satisfaction. Is it important that the team feels good about their role and project's results? If there were challenging situations or interesting situations, you can reflect and focus on them so that you can be able to see how you can further them, or how you can reduce some of the responsibilities or add some more responsibilities, and be able to grow the team to a level that you are moving towards your success. If one of the things that I have come to understand in my experience is that if your team is very satisfied, it means they have understood what success is, and the quality of what they will deliver will be based on their motivation. Then evaluation of, well, once you do that, you will be able, sorry, there's some interruption in my presentation, but it's okay. So once you do that, you are able to look at, when you analyze all these areas, you are able to see, was there relevance? And relevance is the project valid and pertinent in terms of development issue? Were the priorities that was stated in the initial phases, targets, were they achieved or not? Then you are able to see, was there performance? Was the performance of progress measured? Where are we in terms of the project? Are there issues to do with what we wanted to implement? Is it effective? Is there efficiency, or people take time to access services, for instance? Were you within timeline of inputs and results, so that you are able to see, are we moving towards success? Then you will also be able, when you reflect on those things, you will be able to identify, was there success? What has the program or project done to bring about change in the impact? Change in terms of impact, change in terms of sustainability, change in terms of contribution to the capacity development. So if there's no any question, then I can move to indicator development.
Yes, please go ahead.
So once you have defined success, like we have defined success, then it is just proper for us now to develop what we call indicators for us to be able to measure the success. So somebody might ask, what is an indicator? Indicator is an observable and measurable sort of a characteristic. That characteristics is used to show that there is a change or there's a progress that is made during the implementation of the program. And there is we are on the it is a characteristics to show us that we are on the journey towards achieving a specific outcome or success as we have defined. Indicators could be quantitative. As I said before, quantitative means numbers. They can be measured in terms of numbers, in terms of percentages, and all that. They could be qualitative. It means they could be narratives. But they help us to measure changes over time and help us to assess the effectiveness of an intervention, as well as assess whether we are succeeding or not. Indicators may have certain characteristics for them to be good indicators. One of the characteristics that indicators must be valid, meaning that they are accurate, you can measure them, and they're accurate, you can measure them to the very minute point. Indicators must be reliable, that you can consistently measure it over time in the same way by different observers. If I come, I observe, I see the same thing. If you come and observe, you see the same thing. They must also be precise, meaning that defined in very clear terms, that you understand it very clearly. They must be measurable, in meaning that you can quantify using certain kind of tools or methods. Then they must be timely, meaning that they can be measured at time intervals relevant to your program goals, relevant to your program activities. Then they must be programmatically linked, meaning that your indicators must be speaking the same language of what your program wants to achieve. That indicator has several components for you to understand that it's a good indicator. It must have a title. That's what we call the heading. That heading must capture the focus of your indicator. Then must have definition, a clear and concise description of what it is. What is this indicator? Then it must have a purpose, the reason that the indicator exists, to do what, or what is it for. It must have certain principles that justify why we develop that indicators and why that indicator is needed. And it must have a method upon which that indicator must be measured with certain tools. Like, for example, you need to have certain tools. You need to have a sampling framework for you to be able to measure that indicator. You must have things like, for example, define the way you calculate the steps in which you determine the value of that indicator, what we call the calculation. You must have the top number if it is a percentage or a proportion. It must have a numerator and denominator. Then the indicator must have data collection method. How do you collect data? Do you collect, if it is a quantitative indicator, do you have survey tools records or models do you use for you to collect data? If it is a qualitative meaning stories, do you have uh, FGD guide? FGD is a focus group discussion, and it must have a guide or key informant interviews or in-depth interviews guides that can help you to collect data. Then that indicator must have a data collection tools, just like I said before. You have either a survey form or you either have guides that you use to collect either quantitative or qualitative data. Then the component of it also needs to have data collection frequency. How often do you collect? What are the intervals? Quarterly, annually? When do you collect the data? It must have data disaggregation in terms of do we have subgroups in it, like sex, age, or defining really risk population. Then it must have guidelines to interpret and use data. How best do you evaluate and apply the findings? You understand? Then it must have the strengths and weaknesses. You need to have a brief summary of what the indicator does well and what the challenges of that indicator as well. Then you need to look at the potential obstacles or problems that may have that indicator may have. This is to help you focus on how can you deal with those challenges. This is to help you also focus on even setting risks, setting assumptions. Then it must have relevant sources of additional information. That is why in most cases, when we are doing an M&E plan, you have an indicator reference sheet so that it has more information on background, many other issues on those indicators that you need to learn. Once we look, once you have seen that your indicator, the components of your indicator, then it is also good that you look at several indicators in different areas because indicators may monitor certain themes. They may monitor behavior, direct impact, or infrastructure. Behavior meaning that those indicators can be able to monitor certain kind of behavior. Like the psychologist might say, there is an indicator of a certain behavior that has changed or not changed. Then direct impact means just the direct effect. You know, when you, for example, when you apply heat on a plastic, the direct is it melts. Then another thing will be, for example, on the infrastructural or the system of the program implementation, where the program implementation is anchored. Indicators might also define changes in infrastructure. For example, percentage of health facilities that offer ART that could be able to define infrastructural changes. Indicators could also check if there was change in policy. Was there existence of a certain policy or not? Or if there were certain areas of the policy that needed to change, did they change or did they not change? They can also check if service delivery or products were they effective, were they not effective? Like, for example, delivery of services, training, knowledge, attitude, and interventions. For example, you will see indicator that says the percentage of population at high risk who were tested for diabetes in the past 12 months and who know their results. So we know that there's something that the program service delivered. Okay. So it is also important for us to know that there are different kind of indicators. There are those indicators that we say process indicators that monitor the process, such as activities that we carry out. For example, the number and percentage of female clients that were screened if there was a screening. We have result indicators that are used to evaluate whether or not the activity achieved or was achieved, or achieved the intended objectives or results. For example, you would look at the perception of survivors about quality and benefits of service provided by an organization or an institution. When looking at results indicators, there are those indicators that are developed at the output level, outcome, and impact level. Output is what immediately comes, the result that comes immediately after implementing a certain activity. Then outcome is what output gives birth to. Then impact is what the outcome give birth to at the broader level. So results indicators are developed at those levels, and output indicators illustrate the change related directly to the activities that we have undertaken within a program. For example, if you had trained people, health workers, community health workers, or community health volunteers, or even nurses, or even clinicians, you can say the output of is like the number of people that you trained, or the percentage of the people you train. Outcome indicator relate to the change that is demonstrated as a result of the program intervention at the medium to long-term level. An example would be the number of decisions in the informal justice system of a community related to violence against women that reflect a human rights-based approach. Then impact indicators would measure the long-term effect of a program intervention. For example, the prevalence of violence against women or girls in a certain community. And if you see they are smart, the more smart you become with your indicators, the more accurate you will be, and the more clear you will be to seeing your journey towards success. All right. Is there any question before I go to coming up with a good indicator to measure success?
No questions for now.
Okay. So before you come up with an indicator, a good indicator to that matter, you must ensure that there's availability of data. That some data may be considered privileged information by agencies, projects, or government officials. So make sure that the indicator you choose, that data is available so that you can collect that data. Then make sure that the indicator you choose, you have resources, that the cost of collecting data is not so expensive. The cost of collecting data, for example, or developing tools to collect data is not expensive. That the indicator and the technical people needed to do that, to collect that data is not expensive, so that you are realistic and avoid being unrealistic in a manner that you cannot be able to collect that indicator, then you will not be able to measure. Then that indicator you collect, make sure that it's programmatic and external, the programmatic and external requirements are being considered. That what outside and what outside and inside of the program speaks the same language. Sometimes we fall into risk of indicators being imposed by some trained people like M&E experts. But it's good that that indicator is a and external requirements are met and agreed upon, so that we are not measuring something different internally, and externally we are looking at something different. So what I would say in conclusion about considering a good indicator, it's we have to stay away from indicators that activities cannot affect. We must stay away from those indicators that we call vague, that do not currently exist, cannot be realistically be collected, or that do not accurately represent the desired outcomes that we set during the definition of the goals and objectives. Then what I will have to say here is, when quantitative indicators of success cannot be identified, you can always go for qualitative methods that can give some alternatives. How do we then come up with a good indicator to measure success? CBOs and NGOs may consider using, as I said, quantitative or qualitative indicators, but those indicators must be smart enough so that the progress or success is measured at the end. It is important for us to identify the program goals, objectives, and identify outcomes and outputs. It is important for us to develop and ensure that these statements are smart, as I said, test them, refine them, monitor and evaluate progress, and review and update the indicators on a regular basis. Then it is important for us to ensure that we are within certain timelines, and so that we are able to see if we are measuring the objectives that we envisaged to. So I'll give some steps for us to come up with a good indicator. First one is develop an indicator framework. Each and every organizations develop an indicator framework. That indicator frameworks correlate with the key objectives, projects, activities, and our work plans. And they will help us to lay a framework on how to choose indicators that are in line with the program goals and objectives. The structure of the frameworks is the logical framework, for example, or log frame, that can be able to help put a framework to be able to select a good indicator. For example, if you may choose to use the logical model as your framework for indicator development, you will be able to identify indicators that are that show your goal and objectives have been achieved. You can be able to also look at how you have defined what the project can be held directly or accountable for producing deliverables, for example, the goods and the services at the project output, so that you are able to have indicators that will describe your project outputs, and as well as you are able to come up with the indicators that can be able to describe project inputs or your processes that you are carrying out. So once you have that framework, I've just given an example of a logical framework that helps you to develop good indicators. Then once you have that, once you have that, then what you do next is to, sorry, is um, to harmonize indicators. Harmonizing indicators follows a certain way of doing it. Is first of all, you set standards, and setting standards to help you harmonize indicators is to ensure that the indicators that you have either uh, follow a certain sector of development that you are in, and a number of international organizations like the UN, the UN bodies can be able to to give you some sort of resources to help you harmonize, to work with. But at the end, what you need to ensure is that your indicator is needed and useful. Don't just select indicator in that area and it's not needed and it's not useful. Make sure that the indicator merit and it is fully defined as we understood from the previous slides that are presented. Then the indicators are feasible to measure, and it has been field tested or used operationally, so that it's not out of context, it's not out of the standards. Okay, are we together? Are we together? Okay, then
yes, please.
Once you do that, then you do indicator sets. You can do indicator sets so that you can decide which indicator sets have been widely used and accepted by national or global. Then you look at the indicator registry so that you see which indicators fall in your level, either in the business that you are in, and those can be guided by UN Millennium or Sustainable Goals that could be in the economic, in the health sector, whether you are in those. And I've given you this pyramid so that the pyramid can help you look at the when you are harmonizing those indicators, how do you harmonize? So you will harmonize by looking at the base indicators, which are very important from the base level. The base level indicators are indicators that are project oriented, that measure the project achievements or success. Then we have the national level. Those can be aligned according to the national sector area. Then we have the global level that can be measured to the global sector, like, for example, the UN Millennium or Sustainable Goals. Then once you do that, you have to determine data sources for your indicator. And determining data sources, you have to look at the types of data needed, whether quantitative or qualitative. Then you identify who are those people who, or those areas where you get the data, where we call the identify potential sources of data. Then you might be able to also look at evaluate the quality of potential data sources, determine the feasibility of collecting data, priorities, make priority, which data source is priority for you. Then you develop a data collection plan. Then once you do that, you have to refine and test indicators, review the program goals so that you see, are they speaking the same way? You can do that by looking at your logical framework or the framework of indicators that you have. Then you gather input from stakeholders. The input from stakeholders will help you to continually align and seek feedback that can tell you whether you are on the right track, the right indicator or not. Then you can revise those indicators after getting some feedback from stakeholders. Then you field test the indicators. When you field test the indicators, you'll be able to get some more information that can be help you to refine them to be more clear. I might not take a lot of time to looking at the refining, but once you do refining of the indicators, you might repeat the refining and testing process just to be sure, are you consistent? Then you can finalize the indicator and you have the indicator that you have. And once you have those indicators, you must write an indicator reference sheet that defines indicator in the same manner that we discussed earlier, so that everybody knows what the indicator is. When we're speaking about an indicator, they know what indicator is and how it's defined and all the components that are in that indicator. Then once you have the indicator set, then you need to set targets. Targets are things that you set yourself to show your success. You may set targets after you have done a baseline, so that you can see the effects that you have at the end. When setting an indicator target, you must have baseline, as I said, looking at the situation before. Then you might look at some that will give you some patterns that occur, so that your indicator is very clear on checking on certain things. You must set stakeholders of expectations. What do they think about it? The implementers, the government, and all that. Then you must look at the stakeholders' expectations. Look at expert opinion or finding on that indicator. Look at performance of similar activities, projects in the similar sector, so that you are clear on the targets that you want to achieve. Then once you do that, you will establish a monitoring and evaluation plan. And monitoring and evaluation in terms of goals, in terms of responsibilities, and all that. Establishing a monitoring and evaluation plan helps you to define the data collection methods, helps you to determine the data sources, helps us to state the procedures for data collection, to focus on identifying data analysis methods, to give us some sort of reporting plan and roles and responsibilities of who is collecting data at what time. It will also help us to establish a timeline and put in place a framework for monitoring and evaluating of that plan to see if we are achieving success or not. In conclusion, what I will say that success can be measured in two basic ways. One way involves setting goals, targets, and then comparing actual activity to the goal. The second way involves tracking results, looking for trends and changes in activities or results over time. Then I would say that tracking can either be routine or it can be periodic. And tracking can be applied to any of the success measures that we talked about: the impact, the sustainability, and contribution to capacity development. Then I would like to mention that the goal setting approach works only when we set realistic goals. But if we do not set realistic goals, then we are not able to measure success. But an important issue to monitor progress is, how do we define success? And defining success is developing a good indicator that will help you to point out what success looks like. And a good indicator will help us to track, will not help us to track will help us to track not only how many events are held, but how many people have participated, and also how many people have changed their attitude and behaviors. So I think that might have taken a lot of time, but that is what I had intended to share with you. Thank you very much. I don't know if there are questions that I can respond to.
Thank you so much, Eric. For now, we don't have questions in the Q&A. It was really packed, and I'm sure everyone is trying to process the information and get out questions from it. But I just want to ask, like, with your experience in monitoring and evaluation, what can you say is the most reason why NGOs, startup NGOs or CBOs fail? Like one major reason related to M&E, why most of them fail?
A good question, Success. I hope that's your name.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. In my experience, many CBOs and NGOs respond to speculated call for proposals. And when they respond to speculated call to proposals, they then write proposals that interest the funder, but not addressing the real needs of the community. That is why there is a lot of funding, but there is no change that is made, and there is no success. So the NGOs and CBOs, in most cases, they do not address community needs, but they address desk needs. Instead of defining the problem, the needs of the people, and setting goals that they can achieve by addressing the needs of those people, they respond to speculated. That's what I have seen. Is that sufficient enough for you?
Thank you. Yes, and I'm sure the rest of the participants also support what you say. Thank you so much. It's very important because I think there's something it's called. I don't know if it's an M&E term, but human-centered approach. So when we have the beneficiaries in focus, most likely would have to develop good M&E indicators that's going to sustain the CBO or the NGO and provide the most needed service to our beneficiaries. Thank you so much, Eric. I'm not seeing any questions in the Q&A, but definitely the presentation would be shared to the participants in the WhatsApp group, and they can go through if they have any questions. I'm sure they can reach you via email. Is that okay with you?
Yes, yes, they can reach me. I can provide my email.
Okay, you can put it in the chat so anyone who would like to get that can get that and reach out to you with their personal questions. So thank you everyone for attending today's webinar. Next week is for the pitch presentation, and it's compulsory for both faculties, so you'd need to be there, and it's 2 days as well, Tuesday and Thursday. Thank you, Eric, for providing your email address in the chat. So if you'd like to get that in the chat, you can take that and reach out to him with your questions. Over to you, Eric, for any final words before we call it a day.
I'll just say thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity also to share my experience with the I would say development friends. I hope it has been helpful, and you can reach out to me if you need any clarifications. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to address them. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you everyone for attending. If you register for the pitch, submission is ongoing, so submit your videos as soon as you can, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.